Welcome to the Communication in History, the Key to Understanding with Iowa Topics. My name is Vania Boland, and I'm the State Coordinator for the National History Day in Iowa program. Today, we're going to talk about the theme and look at some Iowa topics that make a great connection to communication and history. If you have any questions or concerns about this year's theme, please send me an email or give me a call. You can also check out the iowaculture.gov/NHD. So we're going to talk about understanding the theme. We're going to look at how to decode your topic. So once you select a topic, what is the process to decode and make a great connection to communication and history? Then we're also going to talk about some theme connection reminders, a couple of things we want you to remember as you're making the connection, writing your thesis statement, and building your project. As always, please check out the National History Day in Iowa website and check out a list of Iowa topics for this year's theme. Understanding the theme. So why is there an annual theme in the first place? To provide a focus for student research and topic selection, the National History Day program has an annual theme. It's big and broad on purpose to give students a lot of leeway. Their task is to justify how their topic fits the annual theme and demonstrates historical significance. It is student choice, which means you can pick any kind of topic you want to focus on. It can be local Iowa history, it can be a national topic or a world-focused topic. But you must, 1, demonstrate the topic's relationship to the theme, 2, prove the topic's significance in history. So this year's theme is communication in history, the key to understanding. The definition of communication is a process by which information is exchanged between individuals through a common system of symbols, signs, or behavior. This theme is asking you to consider how people exchange information and interact with each other. We want you to explore how the methods and modes of communication have changed over time and how they have shaped the present. Major inventions like the telephone, the telegraph, and the television stand out in our minds as obvious examples of how communication has changed over time. Yet, communication is more than just these inventions. It's about how words, thoughts, or ideas are exchanged throughout history. So we're going to break it down into 3 ways to understand this theme. We're going to look at major inventions such as the telephone, the telegraph, or television that were used to communicate information. We're going to look at communication regarding words, thoughts, ideas that were exchanged to make an improvement, and methods and or modes of communication that have changed over time, and now they have shaped our present. So our first Iowa topic here, and looking through inventions. As a part of his PhD work, Nicholas David C. Nicholas from Iowa State University developed a filler and a synchronization sequence for data compressing Huffman codes, a process to more efficiently convert text into digital information for the fax machine. His work was patented, and by the late 1980s, most every fax machine manufacturer worldwide used Nicholas's patent method in their fax machine. Did you know that faxes are still used to transmit medical information today? John Vincent Atnasoff is known as the father of the computer. With the help of one of his students, Clifford E. Berry, in Iowa State College during the 1940s, he created the ABC, the Atnasoff-Berry computer, and it was the first electronic digital computer. And some of you might have been lucky enough to go to Iowa State University and see the example right there. Thoughts and ideas. Iowa Women's Suffrage Association monthly newspaper, the Woman's Standard, was Iowa's main suffrage newspaper, and it was founded by Martha Callanan. But this lovely lady here, Mary Jane, was the first editor. Other thoughts and ideas. Iowa's longest lasting African-American newspaper, published by John Thompson and James B. Morris, the Iowa Bystander. And you can actually check out this wonderful newspaper on the microfilm at the Iowa State Historical Society of Iowa. Changing of methods and or modes of communication. Women from Collins Radio in Cedar Rapids, Iowa, were recognized by NASA in 1969 for their work on the communications equipment used for Apollo 11 mission. For 6 days, the astronauts relied on communication equipment developed by Collins Radio. And this is a photo of Arthur Collins in the radio laboratory in Cedar Rapids. Another method of communication, Arthur Collins from Cedar Rapids at age 15 became an international sensation when he was the only person to receive radio transmissions in code from Donald MacMillan Arctic expedition in Greenland in 1925. All right, so those were some great examples of Iowa topics in connection to the theme, but now we're going to talk about how to decode your topic. So let's say you already have a topic in mind, you're not sure if it's strong enough, but you're interested in it. I want you to try and take this graphic organizer right here and see if you're able to answer all 6 of these questions. So first step, we're going to define your topic. So what interests you? Is there a time period you're interested in? How did people communicate during this time? Is there something discussed in class you would like to learn more about? What types of communication interest you? Are people communicating, or is there a miscommunication? So I'm going to decode the topic of Arthur Collins and the MacMillan Arctic expedition. So the time period for this topic is early 1900s, more specifically 1925. And I also want to focus on the historical context. The communication during this time is vital for us to pinpoint. So during 1925, we're looking at letters, newspapers, the electric telegraph, telephones, simply party line systems, and even radios for private use. So I also want you to think about the television was not formally introduced until 1927. So step number 2, I want to define the topic parameters. So I want you to ask yourself, what is the start date of your topic and what's the end date? Remember, if your topic is too big or covers too long of period, it makes it harder to research and form a strong argument. Where does your event take place? In a city? In a town? What country? What does the time period look like? What other historical events are happening at the same time as the event you're researching? So we really want to focus on our historical context at this point. So the start and end date of my topic is the summer of 1925. My topic locations, where is my story going to take place? On a small settlement on Greenland's northwest coast, so about 700 miles south of the pole. And Collins is in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. The historical context or other events that are taking place. Calvin Coolidge is the President of the United States. 19th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution is ratified on the 18th of 1920, so we're giving women the right to vote. The BBC is formed, and the classic novel The Great Gatsby is published by American author F. Scott Fitzgerald. So this information, the historical context, as you're pinpointing it and trying to see what's happening in society at that time, this information I'm not going to put in my project, but it does give me a sense of the historical context that's happening during the time of Arthur Collins and the MacMillan expedition. Connections and contradictions. So at this point, we want to know who's involved in the story. Is there more than one person? What, if any, groups are involved? Are there people or groups collaborating or cooperating with each other? Are all the groups working together towards the same goal? Do they agree or disagree with each other? Is one group more invested? Are there people working in opposition to each other? So at this point, we want to label our key players in the story. So for mine, I have 3 individuals that we're going to focus on. So I have Lieutenant Commander Richard Byrd, we have Captain John Reinhardt, and Arthur Collins. Identify communication and misunderstandings. What are the misunderstandings or miscommunications between the people involved? How, why does the misunderstanding start? Does the misunderstanding cause problems for the parties involved? Does the misunderstanding help? And how does it help? Do the people involved try to fix the situation? So I've labeled out here my miscommunication and the solution to it. So the miscommunication was the communication between the U.S. Naval radio station in Washington, D.C. The plan during this expedition was to make daily radio reports to the U.S. Naval radio station. But because of the atmospheric problems and the land station in Washington, D.C. was unable to consistently receive their messages. So Reinhardt and Collins felt that the shorter wave transmission had a better chance to establish communication. So what was the solution to this? Using a ham radio that Collins himself built, he talked by code with John and Greenland night after night. His signals reached the expedition more clearly than others. After each broadcast, Arthur Collins took the messages from the expedition down to the Cedar Rapids Telegraph Office and relayed to Washington, D.C., the scientific findings that the exploratory group had uncovered that day. Step 5, discover the outcomes. So we want to talk about short-term and long-term impact at this point. Short-term impact. Because of the success Arthur had with his ham radio using short waves, he was asked to build a transmitter for the Little America expedition. The plan was to have voice transmissions that could be broadcast over commercial radio. CBS was convinced to help sponsor such an endeavor. So what's the long-term impact of Arthur's work? Well, his work and creation of the transmitter enhanced communication through radio for future generations. In 1933, Collins formally incorporated Collins Radio, which actually was a small ham radio factory in his basement. He moved his operations to a building in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. So when we're looking at discovering the outcomes, we want to know the results of the communication. What are the short-term changes resulting from this communication or miscommunication? What are the long-term changes resulting from this communication or miscommunication? And last but not least, we want to explain our reasoning. What's the connection to the theme? So this was a draft of my thesis statement. In June of 1925, 15-year-old Arthur Collins was the only person to pick up a radioed message from the MacMillan Arctic expedition ship, the Bowdoin, in Greenland, more than 2,500 miles from his location in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. Collins and the ship's operator, John, experimented with short wavelengths in radio communication, which proved to be a successful way of communicating for a longer distance. Collins went on to develop equipment for the expedition to Antarctica in 1933. So when we're looking at explaining our reasoning, we want to know, how does the topic apply to the theme of communication in history? Think about the argument you are trying to make here. Why is this event important to our understanding of history? Does this event challenge our way of thinking? How does it impact our world today? So a couple of things we want you to keep in mind when you're working on making your topic connect to communication and history. In order to understand the role of communication plays in history, students will have to understand the historical context. So it's the appropriate setting in which to understand the subject's time period. We want to know what is motivating people to talk, write, and communicate with each other during this time period. We also want to focus on the short-term and long-term impact. So what's that first reaction after your topic takes place, and how does it have a lasting impact to this day? If you have any additional questions or concerns about the theme for 2021, please reach out to me by email or give me a call. And you're welcome to visit our website, iowaculture.gov/NHD, to find more information on Iowa topics and working with the theme.